ما شفنا شيء.
Good afternoon. You're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Nima Naufal. These are today's top stories. Lebanese forces leader Samir Jaja pleads with his young supporters not to give in to any drugs. U.S.-led airstrikes kill at least 52 civilians in a village in northern Syria. And Prince William's wife, Kate, the Duchess of Cambridge, gives birth to her second child, a baby girl. Lebanese forces leader Samir Jaja is pleading with his younger supporters not to smoke marijuana, insisting that its effects are potentially as dangerous as any other drug. He said, "I want to stop at a very important issue because it is about something that could derail all our dreams for a rising generation and a new nation. And this issue is drug use." He was speaking at a crowd that gathered in the Mount Lebanon town of Ma'arab at a student-organized event. There are many people, he said, in society who promote cruel theories, saying, for example, that light drugs do not cause any harm and are mere tranquilizers or so. He added, referring to marijuana specifically, he said it transforms them into mere biological beings roaming the earth without a compass, a cause, a meaning, or a purpose. He called on parents to keep an eye on their children and prevent them from falling into this terrible trap. Addressing the youth, he said his priorities youth department would launch an awareness-raising campaign on the dangers of drugs in schools and universities starting the next academic year. Only when its infrastructure and institutions are solid will Lebanon be able to experience real democracy, according to Free Patriotic Movement leader Michel Aoun. He said when the country's construction is completed in terms of institutions, infrastructure, and politics, it will not matter who is in government, who wins, or who loses. He said this at a dinner celebrating the 12th anniversary of his party's news site, Tayyar.org. Aoun said having the solid socio-economic and political basis would bring psychological stability to citizens and spread tranquility among both government and opposition parties. The Maronite leader, who is also the presidential candidate of the March 8 bloc, reiterated a call he made to political rivals last week to stop bidding on foreign powers. U.S.-led airstrikes killed at least 52 civilians in a village in northern Syria. Airstrikes by the coalition early on Friday on the village of Bir Mahle in Aleppo killed 52, according to Rami Abdurrahman, the head of the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. He said that Kurdish militiamen and Syrian rebel fighters were clashing with ISIS in a town roughly 2 kilometers away. Abdurrahman said not one single ISIS fighter was killed in the strikes on the village, but that raids on a nearby town had killed at least 7 jihadists. Airstrikes by the U.S.-led coalition have supported Kurdish militias fighting the jihadists in Aleppo province. Fighters loyal to President Abdurrabbu Mansour Hadi and Houthi fighters clash as they continue to battle for the control of the main airport in Yemen's southern port city of Aden. At least 27 civilians and fighters from both sides were killed in the fight for the airport as well as in the port district of Mualla. Residents say dozens of families have fled, braving Houthi sniper fire and checkpoints as homes are shelled and burned. The Houthis hail from Yemen's far north and belong to the Zaydi sect of Shia Islam. U.S. warships protecting American flagged ships in the Strait of Hormuz may extend assistance to other countries' vessels, officials say, after reports of Iranian forces harassing shipping. The expanded U.S. naval presence is intended to signal to Iran that Washington is ready to safeguard shipping along the vital corridor, even at a moment of delicate diplomacy with Tehran over its nuclear program. American warships started accompanying U.S. flagged vessels in the Strait of Hormuz on Thursday in response to 2 incidents in less than 1 week in which commercial vessels were coerced or harassed by Iran's Revolutionary Guards. And a rocket hit a medical center in Libya's eastern Benghazi, killing 3, according to medics. 7 other people were wounded when the rocket hit a center of dispatching ambulances. It was unclear who had fired the forces, but Libya's official government and Islamist groups are fighting for control of Benghazi, creating chaos that has gripped the oil-producing nation 4 years after the toppling of Muammar Gaddafi. Coming up next, Nigeria troops have freed some 700 women and children from Boko Haram strongholds. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching the 4:20 o'clock news on Future Television. Nepalese residents are getting measles vaccinations at health centers to protect themselves and their children against a possible outbreak in the aftermath of a deadly earthquake last week. The 7.8 magnitude earthquake has killed 6,600 people. Families whose homes were destroyed have been sleeping outside, some in groups. The World Health Organization and partner groups have been deploying teams to affected areas to give vaccinations, medications, and food supplies to earthquake victims who have been displaced from their homes. They said they have yet to see critical situations, but there is a high chance of an outbreak of diarrhea and other illnesses. The UN said earlier that some of the relief material for survivors of Nepal's devastating earthquake was being held up at the country's only international airport because of customs bottlenecks. Nigerian troops have freed some 700 women and children from Boko Haram's Sambisa forest stronghold over the past week, but uncertainty does remain over the fate of 219 girls seized from their school in Chibok last year in a kidnapping that sparked global outrage. In the latest rescue, 234 women and children were rescued through the Kawuri and Konduga end of Sambisa forest. According to the defense headquarters, it released a statement saying around 500 women and children have already been freed by the military from the Islamists in the past few days. The military said the assault on the forest is continuing from various fronts, and efforts are concentrated on rescuing hostages of civilians and destroying all terrorist camps and facilities in the forest. Army spokesman Colonel Sani Usman said that the hostages are freed without much resistance. Baltimore's top prosecutor announced criminal charges against all 6 officers suspended after a black man, Freddie Gray, suffered a fatal spinal injury in police custody. The state's attorney declared that Freddie Gray's death was a homicide, his arrest was illegal, and his treatment in custody amounted to murder and manslaughter. The city cheered and expressed amazement over the prosecutor's announcement, which came only one day after she received the results of the internal police investigation and the autopsy report. A Baltimore resident said he was satisfied about this result of judgment. There was no large gathering at the intersection immediately after the announcement, but the city planned for a huge celebration and protest over the weekend. Maryland Congressman Elijah Cummings called people to keep calm while protesting. The Baltimore city, which has been on edge and seen looting and riot after Freddie Gray's death on April 19, was still under a nighttime curfew, and National Guard troops and police were out in full force. Prince William's wife, Kate, the Duchess of Cambridge, is admitted to hospital in London for the birth of her second child, a baby girl. She entered the private Lindo wing of St. Mary's Hospital, where she had Prince George just 2 years ago. The prospect of a new royal baby has been keenly anticipated ever since her pregnancy was announced last year. Now the final arrangements have been put in place. When Prince George was born, hundreds of media had camped outside the hospital for several weeks, crammed day and night into a tiny stretch of pavement to make sure they got their shot. This time, the royal and hospital authorities insisted things would be different. Media are barred from taking up position until the palace announced officially that Kate was in labor. The Center for Civic Engagement and Community Service at the American University of Beirut organized a conference highlighting the importance of social media in promoting non-governmental organizations. One of the conference's key features is that it brings together over 100 local and international NGOs for a 2 full-day exhibition to promote their efforts, raise awareness on civic issues, and network with civic groups. Moderated by Layla Khawli Hanna, this specific panel featured the Nawaya Network founder, Zaina Saab, as well as Gino Blog, Gino Raidi, and myself, explaining how to manage the different platforms of social media and how to direct them.
Social media has helped us do what we do and create an impact on the youth that are enrolled in our NGO. We have a mentorship program, the first of its kind in Lebanon, where we match role models with underprivileged youth. And we tried to do the offline campaigning to recruit mentors when we first started Nawaya 2-3 years ago. We had ambassadors on each campus communicate our work to students, trying to recruit them to become mentors. And we thought it was a brilliant idea and actually flopped. So we thought maybe we need to take it all online and create something inspiring, something short that can really captivate and get people to enroll as mentors. And so we produced a very short video, and it went viral, reached thousands of people online, and as a result our mentorship program was officially launched in I think March, April 2013, 2014, I can't remember. And so that's one way in terms of recruitment and getting the word out, raising awareness about what we do. We use social media to do that.
What social media has done coupled with traditional media, but even taking a more important role, is really putting them on the map and allowing people to get the kind of, allowing NGOs to get exposure, allowing people to decide whether or not they're interested to donate in the cause. And you know, it allows NGOs to kind of come together, because before social media, I don't know if you knew somebody who had created an NGO that made it easier, but today, you know, with a hashtag on Twitter being my most active form of social media, you get to know there are a lot of NGOs out there. You get to come together and enhance relationships, allowing for better exposure, better reach out, and generally also, I think, gaining credibility with time and allowing people to see what you're doing.
I sort of have like a technique now, which I use almost every time. First, I start by Twitter. I say where I'm going and why, and who I'm going to be with. Then, while they're on the ground, Instagramming, it's photos of what's happening, who the people are, who the aid workers are, where are we exactly, how beautiful is that place, trying to break the stereotypes that these places usually have as it is happening, with a couple of lines of description under a photo, which is usually a bit powerful. Then, in the aftermath is when the actual blog post comes. That's when the more in-depth with the background info, how to help, where is it exactly, more in-depth details about everything eventually happen. The nice thing though, which I've realized by using Instagram and Twitter and other stuff while I'm actually there, is how people are reacting before I even write about it. So it's very easy, for me at least, to write my post in a way to cater to what people are already thinking about the subject I'm going to write about. And that wouldn't have been possible without, you know, live tweeting or live Instagramming, whatever it was we're doing.
It's all about exposure at this point. It's about exposure, getting yourself out there, and I think I've spoken to you about this. It's about marketing yourself. And I think today, if you don't step up and market yourself, because it's a big competition out there, everybody's doing that, nobody's going to do it for you. Now, the challenges, which we'll talk about later, is how do you market yourself, because there is negative marketing and there's positive marketing to everything.
It seems to me, from my experience with Malaya, social media was something we could just do on the side that anyone could do. And so I was managing it. I was managing it since 2012 up until recently. And because our budgets are very small, let's face it, we don't have a lot of money to spend, and the funding that we do get needs to go to the program coordinators, to the rent, to the most immediate, most urgent areas to pursue our work. But I started thinking that no, we really need to set aside a budget to hire a part-time or full-time social media and marketing person, because once that person is fully on board and fully engaged, it's going to automatically expand the pie. More people are going to know about us, more people will donate to us, more people will come to volunteer for us, and we will grow much more quickly and much more significantly.
On that note, we end our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our headlines. Lebanese Forces leader Samir Jaja pleads with his young supporters not to give in to drugs of any sort. U.S.-led airstrikes kill at least 52 civilians in a village in northern Syria. And Prince William's wife, Kate, the Duchess of Cambridge, gives birth to her second child, a baby girl. Those are your headlines on this Saturday. Join us again tomorrow for all the latest. I'm Nima Nofa signing off. Have a good weekend.
ما شفنا شيء.